Welcome back, everybody. This is Stitch 1993, and this is another listicle. Today we're looking at the top 10 movies to watch around Halloween. Now, I say that because some of these aren't really Halloween themed, not even really taking place around Halloween, but these were always the ones that put me in the Halloween spirit. So let's start off with number 10, VeggieTales, Episode 1. Where's God When I'm Scared? Yeah, really interesting way to start off the list, I guess. Probably weren't expecting this from the thumbnail, but it's the closest one that has any sort of sense of horror in it. And there are some scenes that, to a child, at least I remember, actually kind of being creeped out at when I was little. Of course, it teaches that you don't have to be afraid, and that even the monsters you see on television aren't as creepy as you would think they are. So, and then it also goes into a story from the Bible about Daniel and the lion's den. So, definitely would recommend checking this out. Even if you're not a fan of VeggieTales, this is still a really good one to really start getting you into the Halloween spirit, or something to show a child after he's probably watched one too many actual horror movies. Number 9, Frankenthumb. This is the weirdest version of Frankenstein I've ever seen, and I absolutely love it. It used to air all the time on Nickelodeon back in the day, originally released in 2002. And I would say if you like Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein, you'll definitely get a kick out of this. It's all done in miniatures except for the characters, which are thumbs with superimposed human eyeball and mouths on them to make them talk. And it's just got some corny puns and jokes in it, but it's still really family oriented. There's maybe like one or two jokes that may go over a kid's head, but nothing too raunchy. So definitely check this one out. Number 8, Something Wicked This Way Comes, a 1983 Disney film based on Ray Bradbury's story of the same name. This movie is probably the darkest Disney movie. Like, you could probably argue either The Black Hole or The Black Cauldron are darker, but for me, this is always going to be the creepiest one they ever made. It's about two boys who live in a small town in Greentown, Illinois, and a circus comes to town, and it's not what everybody thinks of a circus. And the main bad guy, played by Jonathan Pryce, just this really creepy dude, and tries to come off as a guy that will grant anybody's wish, but it's kind of a monkey paws type of thing where the asked to be one thing, and then that does happen, but then something bad happens to them too. And even at the end of the movie, I don't even think that all that gets erased. Like, yeah, the kids go back to normal, but they never kind of say what happens to the rest of the town. So the ending, although it's supposed to be kind of lighthearted, still feels dark. I don't even know if this one is on Disney Plus, but I would recommend checking it out if it is. Number 7, Monster House. This is just a creepy animated movie. I wouldn't show this to like 5-year-old, like, even though it's animated too, and even some of the trailers back in the day made it seem like this was a nice lighthearted comedy film. It's really dark. The house is really creepy, and some of the imagery is really unsettling. Even the backstory, which I'm not going to spoil, of how the house turns into a monster house is really sad. And just the whole adventure inside of the house is really creepy. There is a video game that they made off of this movie, and it feels like a Silent Hill game, like Silent Hill Jr. It captures that creepiness just well. It's by Robert Zemeckis' animation back before it really got into the Uncanny Valley area. But this, of course, was after Polar Express. So I would definitely give this one a check out, but maybe watch it first without the kids before deciding whether you'd want to show it to kids or not. Number 6, The Raven, a 2012 film starring John Cusack as Edgar Allan Poe. This is a really fun kind of whodunit mystery murder film where it takes place during the 19th century while Edgar Allan Poe is alive, and murders start happening based off of his stories. And yeah, it gets really gruesome in some areas. And so the police hire Edgar Allan to try to figure out who the killer is. And it's kind of a shock of who it is. I won't spoil, but I definitely recommend checking this one out. I'm sure you can find it on streaming, and it's also available on DVD. Number 5, Extraordinary Tales. It just really puts you in the Halloween mood. It's also about Edgar Allan Poe. This one is more specifically adaptations of his stories, and it's an animated anthology film. So, yeah, go check it out. Number 4, 1959's House on Hana Hill, directed by William Castle, starring Vincent Price. If that doesn't sell you, I don't know what else. It's literally Vincent Price invites a bunch of random people to his house, and they have to stay the night, and they'll earn $10,000. And there's haunted house imagery, there's skeletons, witches, murders, all of that, and it ends up kind of being a murder mystery story with a not really a twist ending, because you kind of do see it coming, but it's Vincent Price, and he's just he's at his A game in this movie, so I would definitely check it out. You can find this on DVD, and it's available on streaming platforms. Number 3, Trick or Treat. Originally was going to be released in theaters in 2007, but for one reason or another, I forgot, they released it straight on DVD, so I didn't know about this until I went into a Blockbuster one day and saw this movie sitting there, and yeah, the box art sold me because it had this weird kid in a kind of Halloween mask, and it's a horror anthology film, which I love, and as you can see, it's ended up becoming one of my favorite films, and has definitely gotten a cult following. Probably not even cult following, it's probably just now in the mainstream media, because every time you go into a Halloween store or spirit store, there's a whole bunch of Sam and Trick or Treat memorabilia. But if you haven't seen it, definitely you owe it to yourself to check it out, especially if you like movies like the Tales from the Crypt, Twilight Zone, Tales from the Dark Side type of movies from the 80s and 90s. This is definitely has that same feel, and it's available on, of course, DVD and streaming services. Number 2, 1982's The Thing, also commonly referred to as John Carpenter's The Thing. I don't think there's anything extra that I can say about this film that everybody else hasn't already said about it. The creatures are cool, the acting is great, the soundtrack, the sets, the whole story is just great. If you haven't seen it by now, then what are you doing? Stop this video right now and go watch that. Come back, and then we'll talk about the number 1, because that's also a great movie you should check out. Number 1, 1944's Arsenic and Old Lace, starring Cary Grant. So this came on Turner Classic Movies one night, and I thought it was a fever dream, because this is just the most absurd comedy I've ever seen, and thankfully it wasn't a fever dream. It is actually a real movie, and I've watched it every Halloween since. I've introduced it to my wife back when we were dating. She loved it, and now we watch it every single year. We try to watch it either on Halloween Eve or on the day of Halloween, because it just clicks, pushes all buttons, clicks for us in all the great ways. It was originally a stage play, and then Frank Capra, the same guy that directed It's a Wonderful Life, directed this adaptation of it. It's about a guy named Mortimer Brewster who recently gets married and just goes over to his aunt's place to pick up some last minute things, and then finds out that murders are happening right under his nose. by these sweet little old ladies. And then his brother returns, who is also a murderer. And they're also at the same time trying to get their younger brother to be committed to the insane asylum because he thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt. And it just goes up from there. Great sight gags, great jokes. At the time of this recording, this movie's only 22 years from being a century old. And it's still a classic and has aged just wonderfully. And if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. The recently released version on the Criterion Collection, that is a 4K HD update, but you can also get it on regular DVD and it looks just fine because I've been watching that one for years. I don't know if it's on any streaming service at this time, but if it is, just go and check it out. So that's my top 10 films I highly recommend checking out around Halloween time. Let me know down in the comments what your movies you like to watch around Halloween are. If there's a specific movie that you watch on a specific date, either to get you into the Halloween mood or get you into the trick-or-treating mood or just get you into the fall mood in general. Until next time, thank you and have a good day.